Hello, my soccer universe. My name is Roland, and this is Football Talk. And today will be a slightly different episode. I have been a little bit under the weather, so my preparation for this podcast is probably not as big as usual. So I'm gonna just tell you how my weekend went, football watching wise, and what are the storylines that I have picked up over this weekend. Might be slightly more personal episode. Can already tell you. I mean, my watching went really all over Europe. On Saturday, I think I started out with the Spurs United match. Then I watched the conference for the German Bundesliga. Had actually quite some interesting results. Conference means, of course, and I keep saying that, where they have all the games at the same time, switch back and forth, which to me is one of the most enjoyable ways of watching football. And then I, at the same time, kind of watched the same thing in Austria. That was fun. Picked up a little bit of Sunderland against Arsenal, which also was enjoyable. And then focused all the way on Milan, which was, at first very enjoyable and then became really, really annoying. We'll talk, of course, about Milan as well. At that time, I already didn't feel all that well, but I was so set on going to the stadium on Sunday that I kind of ignored all the health signs. And I had to basically give in right around lunchtime. So we watched the last game on the couch. You have to imagine me and my wife on the couch, the kids on some mattresses in front of us. It was actually quite cute watching together the game this way. LASK got another win. This one was lucky, and it was the exact thing that I think every coach would like to have. You keep on winning. You still have not conceded a goal under the new coach after 5 games. I mean, this hasn't happened for LASK in a long time. But it's so obvious that they have to work and they have to improve. So results are falling your way, but performances are still kind of lagging behind what the coach would expect. And that's usually, I think, a good sign and gives them a lot of energy going into the international break. I then also, after that game, was a little bit more focused on what was happening in Spain and also the big game in Austria between Sturm and Salzburg. So I didn't really watch City against Liverpool, just heard what was happening. And then in the evening, I decided to forego the Serie A match. Yes, I watched a few Serie A. I had a few Serie A matches on as well here and there. But it was not the big focus, I have to say, on this weekend. And as I said, in the evening, I decided to skip Lazio Inter, especially after Inter went after 2 minutes, Inter were 1-0 up, and I said, nah, it's not interesting. And I switched over to the big game in France and the big game in Spain, and both really delivered. And then it became quite enjoyable. So that was basically how my weekend went, and I just want to pick out a few storylines from here and there, maybe going a little bit more league by league now, but this is where my mind is at. I really had not much focus on the Netherlands or Portugal, although there was quite some interesting results in the Eredivisie, which I will mention in passing towards the end. Same thing goes in the way for Liga, even though the Lyon PSG matchup was a really great one. But as always, I want to start in Austria because what LASK is doing is just such a, how to say, unbelievable at the moment. It's not that the performances are unbelievable. I mean, 5 games, 7 goals scored, none conceded, tells you that, it's kind of tight, everything. The most impressive win was the one at the beginning at Rapid, where you won 2-0. But then it was all must-win games, and they all won them. And that, I think, is the really important part to consider here. The game against Altach at home, I mean, it was a pressure situation already because all the competitors for this top 6 spots, meaning Hartberg, Austria, Vienna, and Ried, all won on Saturday. I'm with the exception of Hartberg, all kind of lucky with last-minute strikes. And I have to say, for Austria Vienna, my former LASK player Marko Raguš scored his first goal after a long injury crisis, I think in over 3 years. So in that sense, I was happy to see it. I also kind of made a note that all 3 players that were involved in the goal, actually, I think the last time they played together, they were all at LASK. And that was 3 years ago. So was weird. But honestly, Austria Vienna should not have gotten more than a point out of this game. They should have been down to 10 men after 7 minutes. How Dragovic keeps getting away with things in Austria is really embarrassing at the moment. And yeah, GRK were not happy. Same thing in a way goes for Blau-Weiß Linz, who actually played quite well in Ried and really would have deserved a point out of that one. However, their defensive frailties again, conceding early after the half, like they did against LASK. And then goalie and defense are not on the same page, and Mutandwa again snacks in and snatches the winner. The only really convincing result was Hartberg in Wolfsburg, the replay of the cup final, but this time with the opposite ending. Hartberg is a team that had not had a real home game so far. They had 4 nominal home games, but they will have now a bunch of home games coming up. I think there will be a whole block in the winter where they have just home game after home game after home game after home game because they've rebuilt the stadium. They are really worrying me at the moment. I really gotta be honest. But let's get back to LASK. So there was pressure on LASK to deliver because if you don't win, you are not in the top 6. And yes, I mean, it's still much to go, but Altach is a must-win scenario anyway because the upcoming opponents, Sturm Graz and Rapid, it's not necessarily a must-win scenario. So pressure was on. And I don't know if it showed, but Altach actually played quite well, scored a goal that was not given for a very narrow offside, hit even the post, but also LASK did have some chances, but you could see they were kind of off. The strikers were only looking out for themselves and not at the striking partner and so on. In midfield, they didn't have a grip of the game. It was that the Altach midfielders were running the show. It was in a way also a wild game, and there were some nervy actions, like when once goalie Jungwirth comes way out, doesn't catch the ball, but fortunately a defender anticipates very, very well and could salvage the situation. The goal itself came after one chance by Adanaran, a corner kick in, header by defender Cisse, saved by Altach goalie Stojanovic, and then Bochade, the nephew of Winston Bochade, chests it toward the goal, but it would have gone past the goal if it wasn't for an Altach defender standing there and with his thigh pushing it over the line. Nasty goal. Don't want to say against the run of play, but it was a lucky lead. In the second half, LASK gotten a little bit the game under control. Probably should have settled it. There were 2 or 3 good chances, and again they failed to do that. And so you were lucky to not concede late. There were 2 nervous situations again where our defenders and the goalie were not at the same line, and then also one where a free header from the smaller box missed the target. So yeah, I think it's, as I said in the intro, it's the perfect situation for a coach. You win, but you have so many things to point out that you still can keep on working, but you keep on working with a high spirit. And after the bad start to the season, where we had the exact opposite, you sometimes played well. I mean, there were some real stinkers in there too, but sometimes you played well, but everything went against you. At the moment, all that bad luck is coming back into good luck, and I really, really enjoyed it. I should also mention Rapid with another horrid performance, how they got the 1-1 draw at VSG Tirol. It's probably only down to the fact that they have players that actually have some quality. However, they're not playing well with each other, and this is a huge talking point at the moment in Austria. What's happening? Everyone thought that after a couple of rounds, like last year, the championship is immediate. No, nothing like that. Rapid is trending downward. The question is whether Coach Stöger can slow the fall going into now the international break and then just before Christmas these couple of rounds, or if it will continue this way. So it's a big storyline. And then the big match between Sturm and Salzburg. Yeah, I probably should have watched City against Liverpool, but on the other side, given how lopsided that was, and yes, I can only watch on one device and I had to choose between these two, which is really annoying because for me, if I could double screen, probably would have double screened there, but I can watch Sky only on one device. It didn't really deliver. It was a tight game where the big scene in the first half where a goal from Baidu from a really acute angle was disallowed because of a foul of Radkov in the build-up that I see people say it's alright. To me, Lavallee would never have gotten to Baidu. I really don't think so, especially the way he was defending. I honestly have to say, yeah, potentially foul, but it was more like a trip. They are stumbling into each other. I would not have given that foul. Sturm Graz then score within 20 seconds of the kickoff of the second half. A deflected shot by Kitashvili. Grigic deflects it into the goal, and beautiful Vertessen equalizer. Maybe Sturm just a teeny bit more chances, although I think Salzburg was also quite good in the game. I think the draw was very reflective. It's also very reflective that the Austrian Bundesliga is so close together. I mean, LASK in sixth is only 6 points behind top spot Salzburg. Yes, Sturm Graz have a game in hand, but it shows that nothing is really out of reach. If you're honest, you could fall very quickly, like Blaues Linz did. You can rise very quickly, like LASK did. And if you get a run together, you get very well into a title race. And the one thing that is a really damning stat for the Austrian Bundesliga is that the leader has less than 2 points per game average. You don't see this in other leagues, and it kind of tells a story that the Austrian Bundesliga is really exciting at the moment. However, the quality is missing, and you see that in Europe, and that has me concerned. The innovation is not there anymore. It's kind of everyone is, everyone regressing to a mean. And while this makes for an exciting league, it doesn't necessarily make for great European performances. And so, yeah. It was already a long block about the Austrian Bundesliga. Let's go a little bit Serie A before we make again a journey through Europe. Serie A, goal drought, goal drought, goal drought. It's really crazy how little goals were scored. Even the Turin derby, there was a goal scored, but it was taken off for an offside. I think Simeone would have scored it for Torino. And, I hate the Turin derby because it's so one-sided. Torino is at the moment not capable. Even Juve is bad. Torino not capable of beating the city rivals. That's not good for a rivalry. But yeah, no goals scored until Saturday evening when Milan went to Parma. Beautiful jersey matchup. Parma playing in the third jerseys, Milan in the home jerseys. I actually really enjoyed that one. And this is usually a game that delivers goal. And it did again, 4 goals. And it probably should have been more. But it was, for a Milan fan like me, a really annoying game to watch. Milan controlled that game, at least the first half hour. I would even say 40 minutes. It was such an easy performance. Salamakers scores early on, and Salamakers gets a penalty that Leao converts. There were plenty of more chances. Parma was not existent until Bernabé, with admittedly a really beautiful strike from the edge of the box, makes it 2-1 just before halftime. And Parma didn't need more. This was basically their ray of hope. And then, Milan were really inviting Parma almost to get the equalizer. The next 15 minutes, Milan didn't get a foot on the field. And Parma should have probably equalized way sooner than they did, but it then came. The one thing, though, I have to say is when it was 2-2, I think Parma should have been more proactive, because this Milan at that point were there for the taking. However, they then receded again and played defensively, just saying, okay, maybe a point against Milan is enough. And you were almost punished for that. Pulisic, he made his return. He had a big chance where he should have converted. I think Salamakers had a one-on-one that he stumbled. I really don't know what he was doing there. What a great first half he had. And then everything was going in the second half. Leao had a few situations as well. Milan should have gotten the winner, and we would talk all about a great victory. But this was definitely points dropped. And again, it's a small opponent where Milan drop points. Against the big opponents, they get the results. So it is really weird, the whole thing, the way it is happening. But this was an annoying game in many, many regards, because when you just look at the first half, it was never in the cards that Parma scored 2 goals there. And especially then the defensive performance in the second half. Oh man, this was bad. You had Mike Maignan again saving you from a real embarrassment. And again, I don't know what happened. that Parma then suddenly retreated and were not as aggressive anymore, and were seemingly content with the 2-2. I think if they would have played on, I can very well see them scoring the winner the way they had Milan on the back foot. On the other side, you're opening yourself up for a counter-attack. And, Rafa Leao is probably a player that you don't really want to have there. But yeah, disappointing evening. You could have taken top of the table and put a lot of pressure on the others. And the others, with Juventus already dropping points, then the next one was Napoli dropping points in the afternoon. They lost 2-0 at Bologna, fully deservedly so, and that despite Bologna being reduced, or having to change to their 17-year-old substitute goalkeeper, because Skorupski on a kick-out pulled his hamstring. But he, on his Serie A debut against the great Napoli, managed a shutout because Napoli were not present and Bologna got an easy 2-0 win. Roma beat Udinese, so went top of the table. And as I said, Inter then did likewise against Lazio, so Inter now top of the table, 2-0, going into the derby right after the international break. It's going to be a hot derby. I think this is probably the hottest contested derby in a long time, and I really am curious how this will go. So far, Inter have performed well against the small teams. Well, did they? I think so. And not so well against the big teams, whereas Milan was more or less the other way around. So in that sense, you would favor Milan, but Inter, yeah, Milan were though unbeaten against Inter. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, in that sense, like the Austrian Bundesliga, Serie A is super interesting. It's tight. It is, twists and turns every week. No one is really out of the title race, at least yet. But you also see the Italian European performance. It's the same thing, regression to the mean. And that's not good for a league. Okay, let's look at other places in Europe. I actually want to start in the Premier League, where we had quite some interesting results. 3 games that I want to pick out. The first one is Spurs against United, the replay of the Europa League final. United were leading 1-0 from Buemo. I don't want to say it was deserved, but United seemed like the more settled team. Spurs, again, did not have much to go forward, and then they strike in the last 10 minutes twice. Richarlison even taking the lead for Spurs in injury time, celebrating by taking his shirt off. And then De Ligt, you had 5 more minutes to play it. De Ligt heads it in, and it's a 2-2 draw. I don't know. I mean, many were asking after the game who will be the happy one. To be honest, I think no one can be really happy. Spurs thought they had the win but didn't play well, and United actually were not really threatened and almost lost the game. They just salvaged the point. But yeah, both teams are very much still work in progress. I don't quite understand the negativity around Spurs. I think it's probably down that their home performances are so bad, because away they're performing quite well. I mean, they're sitting relatively high in the table. I think it's 5th spot. So I think Spurs fans probably should be a little bit more calm. I think United also have somewhat settled, but it's also still work in progress. It's not anywhere near where both of these fan bases want to be, but given the horrid seasons they had last year, I think both teams should be very happy where they're sitting currently. We also had a great game between Sunderland and Arsenal. I mean, this was Premier League at its peak. I mean, it was raining. It was a team in Arsenal that is a great team, but one that is met with an opponent that is actually willing to fight and outfought Arsenal. Took actually the lead even, and Arsenal is a team that actually does not shy away from such a challenge, and that made it so intriguing. Arsenal get an equalizer. I think then Trossard even gets the lead, or it was the other way around. Everything is blurring together at the moment a little bit. And you thought Arsenal were winning it, but credit where credit's due, Sunderland did continue to attack, got the equalizer deep in stoppage time. And I saw how Gabriel was really annoyed at that one. But on the other side, Arsenal also could have won it at the death. So it was really exciting. It was an absolutely great game to watch, at least from the last few minutes that I was following. It was gripping, really. What can I say? I think the worst thing is that if Arsenal are going now, woe me, and we lost the points, because actually this shows some fighting spirit. I think this is more a point won by Sunderland than points dropped by Arsenal, because not many will go to the Stadium of Light and win these points. And that I think is rather remarkable. Arsenal don't have to change much. They will not win every game. But they are such a settled team, meanwhile, that they have to be considered a huge favorite in this title race. And I think they're doing an absolute good job at that. And then City are now the only ones chasing Arsenal, outplaying Liverpool. Liverpool maybe even getting the lineup wrong. Something's not right. I mean, I guess Slot had to rotate. I think that the biggest problem for Slot is this huge spending spree where no one is talking about, I mean, everyone's talking how much they spent, but no one's talking about that they also lost big players and like then the big Diogo Jota tragedy on top of that. And then you gave huge contracts to Van Dijk and Salah, who are also, usually when you hand out big contracts, things are not working that well. But, you know, you needed to have these. City also really trying to limit the influence of Van Dijk and kind of focusing that Konate start to build up and therefore really took the Liverpool apart. Yes, Van Dijk had an equalizer chalked off, but honestly, from what I could see and then also heard afterwards, this was every bit of 3-0 as 3-0 can be. And what I want to say is that Liverpool need to or Liverpool fans should kind of focus more or give the trust in Slot, not on this season. I think they will gel together. It at the moment doesn't look pretty. It will be similar like what City had last season. Just give the manager some time and hope that next year everything will start to gel. I mean, a formation needs to be found, and I think if you finish top 4, and most likely the Premier League will get a 5th spot, so top 5 into the Champions League should be sufficient. It's at least my opinion. I think Liverpool fans might disagree. And going over to Germany, quite a few interesting results there as well. As I watched the Saturday games. Bayern almost lost at Union Berlin. Probably should have lost if it wasn't for an absolute wonderful Luis Diaz strike and a very late Harry Kane goal. I mean, Union Berlin, I think, had a goal this for an offside that you barely can make out. They took then the lead, however, then Luis Diaz with a wonderful strike makes it 1-1. Probably should have made it 2-1 then. But Union Berlin outfought Bayern. And this was kind of, Bayern coming off this big win in Paris, where they lost a lot of energy and then there was a little rotation. Maybe they should have gone for a different squad that is a little bit fresher. Then the record might still be up. But, it was a remarkable result, to say the least, that Union Berlin, tiny Union Berlin, managed to get a point of Bayern. Bayern are not perfect anymore. Another remarkable result was Hoffenheim, who's suddenly slowly climbing, beating Leipzig, who were the only challengers to Bayern so far, 3-1. So that was interesting. Dortmund also conceding a late equalizer at HSV. So the Hamburg crowd really up for it. That was absolutely great. Leverkusen 6-0 over Heidenheim. Heidenheim seemed like a team that is going down this season. And another surprising result was Gladbach beating Köln 3-1. Stuttgart had a hard time with Augsburg 3-2. Frankfurt 1-0 over Mainz, the two Eurofighters. That's a local derby. Nothing really great results-wise, but points on the board. In Spain, I'm not quite sure if things will get tighter. However, the two big boys drop points. First off, Atletico Madrid beat Levante. I still don't think Atleti will get back into a title race. But Rayo mentioned 0-0 draw against Real Madrid. Real Madrid finally playing those beautiful blue third jerseys. They actually look mighty fine. This is Adidas doing a great job. And while I always think that Madrid's secondary color should be purple, I think the blue also looks really nice. And I remember in the 80s they were playing a whole lot in blue. Yes, I like the black as well, but I think this blue is a really, really nice color for Real Madrid, I gotta say. So that was a little bit of a surprising result. Also, the Betis dropped points at Valencia 1-1. But the big game was between Celta and Barcelona, and what a fun first half that was. I have a soft spot for Celta, so I was really hoping that they get something. But Barcelona proved a little bit too much, and I also want to say that Celta had a 1 day less to prepare because they were playing in the Europa League, and yeah, that might have played into it. But it was a crazy opening sequence. Yeah, Celta actually had put quite some pressure. Then they give away a penalty that Lewandowski scores, but more or less off the kickoff, Iglesias sends Carrera in this ample space behind the Barca defense, and it's 1-1 in the 11th minute. And then again, ping pong, back forth. However, Rashford finds Lewandowski, 37th minute. It's 2-1 Barca, but again, it's Borja Iglesias, sent this time by Jutkla, former Barca player, that equalizes in the 43rd, and then Lamine Yamal was a nice attacking sequence. The ball falls to him, gives Barca the lead, and then Lewandowski completes his hat-trick in the second half. A game that had considerably slowed down at that point, but the first half, especially, I would say the entire first half was absolute fun, spectacular to watch. And so, even in Spain, things are getting a whole lot tighter. It's fun. I mean, Barcelona is still 3 points behind Real Madrid. I mean, closing the gap, but Villarreal 2 points behind Barca, and then a point behind is Atleti. It still seems, even though they're not convincing, it still seems like Real Madrid are the class of this league. Also want to point out that Espanyol is doing a really good this season, although they lose to Villarreal on this week as well. So not everything going well for them. Okay, and let's finish out with 3 other leagues. First of Portugal, I really have not focused much, but I see that Benfica dropped points under Jose Mourinho, only at 2-2, while Porto get the win at Famalicão and Sporting winning at Santa Clara. So it's still, it will be between Porto and Sporting. And Porto under Faraoli, I think, should be considered the favorites at the moment. Although Sporting, twice defending champions, you never know. In the Eredivisie, we had not only Ajax losing at Utrecht, which you almost would expect, but also Feyenoord losing at the go-ahead Eagles. So now it is really PSV 3 points clear after a thumping of AZ away from home 5-1. Anyone but PSV winning this title would be a surprise. But we said that also last season, and then suddenly Ajax were fully in the running there. And then, of course, Liga, and it was the big game that I watched, as I promised, in a way, and it was a real fun match between Lyon and PSG. Ahead of that, Marseille already had gotten the win. Strasbourg beat Lille, so 2 interesting results. Lens also went to Monaco, beating them 4-1. So Monaco, ever since they sacked Adi Hütter, are even getting worse. But it's all about Lyon against PSG. This was also a real fun match, where of course PSG have more of the ball, but Lyon actually matched them quite well. Zaire Emery gave PSG an early lead. That was then only 4 minutes later equalized by Morera, but Kvara 3 minutes later then re-established the lead for PSG, and then it was kind of a little bit plodding. PSG got it in halftime, but right after the half, Morten finds Maitland-Niles, who lobs the keeper from way out, and it's 2-2, and it really seemed like it will be ending in a 2-2 draw. So again, PSG dropping points. When then Tagliafico is sent off for an elbowing, a second yellow card, kind of a tough one. And from that free kick results in a sequence where Joao Neves has it in, and PSG get the win and take the top of the table again. Otherwise, it would have been OM who were top of the table. So, thanks to PSG being injury-ridden and probably a little bit more focused on Champions League and feeling themselves into Liga is also really, really tight. We have PSG 27, Marseille 25, Lens 25. So, I think this could be a really interesting season in France too. So that ends a slightly different podcast. We're going now into an international break. All the direct qualifiers from Europe will be decided, and I'm really planning to make a little preview for that one. For me, it's all about will Austria qualify or not, but we have the decisive games. There's also some playoffs in Africa. We also have playoffs in Asia, but it's all going for the intercontinental playoff. And then we get into already the World Cup draw, where there's also an interesting development. But I'll talk about this in the next episode. In any case, these are the storylines that I picked up without much preparation, just by watching and listening a little bit and reading a little bit here and there I might have gotten the biggest ones. But if you have anything else that you want to say, please drop a line below. I would be very happy about that. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, I would be happy if you could tell anybody else. Check out also my other channels, especially if you're more interested in football kids. And one thing's for certain, I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye!